This is an extract from my second novel, Ecopunks. Although he had come close to death on a number of occasions, Wolfe rarely allowed himself to contemplate it. However, the 2 weeks he spent drifting at sea in the middle of a nuclear testing zone left him with little option. The French government planned to explode a nuclear device over an isolated area of the Pacific Ocean, and all shipping had been diverted from the zone. Its perimeter was heavily patrolled by the French Navy, with some tacit but unspoken support from its military allies. Nevertheless, a number of vessels managed to slip through, including a small yacht called El Acorde Perdido, owned by a Californian businesswoman called Kathy Ovenbeck. As well as Kathy and Wolfe, the crew consisted of a Jamaican music producer called Francis and a Jordanian environmental activist called Ibram. At least 10 other boats planned to break through the cordon, each of them crewed with people from Africa, the Americas, Asia, Australasia and Europe to ensure as much global coverage as possible. There had been no contact with the various vessels before they sailed into the testing area, with each agreeing to keep their strategies and eventual destinations secret from one another to ensure they were not compromised. The initial exhilaration at managing to sneak past the French cordon and into the exclusion zone was quickly replaced by a stark realisation of the horrendous implications for those who were on board. The French government had made it quite clear that it intended to proceed with its nuclear test, regardless of any protesters who entered the area. While it was easy to convince themselves that this was pure bluff, the activists now had to consider the harsh reality that the French, backed by their military allies, might carry out their test. Ovenbeck and her crew sailed to a random coordinate, well into the exclusion zone, but far enough off centre so as not to be obvious, and simply let the boat drift. All radio communication was banned, and the 4-man crew found themselves cooped up on the tiny vessel, with stale water and limited rations in sweltering heat, contemplating their probable extinction. For the first couple of days, they could hear and occasionally see aircraft in the distance, which they were presumed were searching for them and any other vessels which had made it through. There were 4 French activists scattered among the various crews to maximise opposition in their homeland, but Wolfe and his companions had no way of knowing if they had made it through. For all they knew, they might be the only boat in the exclusion zone. On the 3rd day, they could not see nor hear any aerial activity, and Wolfe concluded that the French government had abandoned any further searches and were now preparing to go ahead with the nuclear test, regardless of the presence of any protesters. They could simply argue that those who had sailed into the exclusion zone had done so of their own volition, in the full knowledge that the nuclear device was going to be exploded there. Wolfe's wife, Kay, had told him of the devastation that her grandmother had witnessed in Nagasaki following the detonation of an atomic bomb by the US military in 1945 to force a surrender by Japan. She had seen people walking as their skin peeled from them, and on the pavement the outlines of human forms, people who had simply been vaporised into a film of dust, flash burnt onto the ground, shadows of what had once been sentient beings blitzed into oblivion without even a millisecond to come to terms with their imminent demise. Wolfe had half hoped that they would be apprehended before breaking through the cordon, or else spotted and dragged away by the French military. Although he did not voice any such hope, he suspected the others felt the same. It was possible the French were playing a psychological game with them and would give them time to crack and flee before detonating their device. It was down to a game of chicken. Would they sail from the test zone after a few token days there, in the full knowledge that they had done their best and that their noble protest had failed, that it was better to live and fight for another day? Once again, Wolfe half hoped that someone else would say it, for he was sure they were all thinking it, but everyone remained steadfast. Wolfe wondered if when the explosion came, he would have time to gather himself together and prepare for his own destruction. Would he see a flash in the sky as the bomb exploded, hear the boom, and then wait for the force of the blast to shred the fibres of his body into a billion pieces and disperse them across the bubbling stretches of ocean, whose surface had been vaporised at the same instant as Wolfe and his companions, the boat, and even the surrounding atmosphere? As Wolfe stared into the sky, he was afraid to even blink in case he should miss his own death. Once, out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a sudden flash, and he dared hardly breathe as he waited to hear the crash of a nuclear explosion. It took him several seconds to realise that a flash of sun had simply caught in the silver frame of someone's sunglasses. Even if they managed to survive the force of the blast, they would quickly be bombarded by radioactive fallout that would either burn their flesh from them or else initiate a slightly slower, but nevertheless inevitable process of decay.